This is going to be part poem and part chat as well, I think. I started writing it the other day and I haven't quite finished it, and I'm not quite certain how, but it began because of a story an old fellow told me, an 87-year-old boy talking about a fellow who lived here when he was young. So it's based on that, and I'll tell you the story in the end because I have to explain it. It's the old stories I love, the tales from long ago, from those who've lived and loved through many a year. They have so much they'd like to share, a richer tapestry you could never find. I'm thinking of some in their 80s now who are telling tales of people who are old to them when they were young. So it's maybe going back 100 years or more for the stories from the bushies, the men of the bush. They were the men and the women too, of course. They had to make do. They didn't have a Bunnings or hardware shop for all their supplies. Town was perhaps 20 or more miles away. They'd be walking there or riding old bikes with flat tyres, or a dray and a horse plodding along. Whatever it was a journey. And while they were there, there'd be the wife's supplies, the flour, the sugar, and the tea, and really not much else, for she grew her own vegetables, and they'd slaughter their meat. The wife would do the old chook to be boiled and be boiled until it was halfway to tender. It, it would last them a week, and the kids couldn't complain, or they wouldn't eat for a week. And that's where the poem finished. But this old fellow told me the story of a fellow who lived here a long time ago, and I'd actually heard this story as well. So he was a drover driving sheep or cattle, and he had a mob to take to Tasmania, or he had taken a mob to Tasmania. And if you don't know, Tasmania is a little island off the mainland of Australia, sort of south of Victoria. And so someone said, "Well, how did you get the sheep across the Bass Strait between the Tasmania and here?" And he said, "Oh, well, I didn't go that way." Funny to me because there's no other way to go. So he was a teller of tall tales. So I don't quite know where he did go, but I really liked that story, and I'd actually heard it before some time ago. Um, and my husband, he had a swag of tales from the old bushies, and now, of course, I can't remember them, but yeah, I do like that one, saying that he'd take the mob a different way. No other way to get them down there unless they were herded onto a ferry that goes across. I don't know. Anyway, that's my story for today. So I'll try and. It's just a shame when these old stories go, because they will go. You know, this generation, when we go, the next ones, I don't think will have them. They would have heard them in passing and had a chuckle at the time, but it's really our history, these old timers. They were pretty amazing. I mean, my great great grandparents were the early settlers. He was actually an Anglican minister just out of Sydney, a little place. The church was called St Matthew's. It was in Windsor, and he was a very humanitarian fellow and had an argument with the church. So he decided he would go south with, and he was able to um, buy up stuff. Well, he had wagons and mobs of sheep, a lot of sheep, something like 2,000 sheep, drovers, dogs, supplies, and the wagons, of course. And they trekked down from outside of Sydney, and across the Murray River. Can you imagine crossing over with all the wagons and the horses and everything? My grandmother, my great grandmother, had actually been born a week after they came out from after they left England, just a week off Land's End, the south of London, south of England. So I can't even imagine my great great grandmother going on board a ship with having her first child, just after they left port, left family, left everything that they'd ever known. Anyway, so they did um, trek down this whole shenanigans, and my great grandmother, as an 11-year-old, was meant to be the first white woman to cross the Murray River, but of course I can't prove that. I really have no idea. So then they came south and then settled outside this country city where we live. And the family have been there ever since. So that was 1836, I think, so a long time ago. So, and then so Mary, that my great grandmother married a fellow who was, his father had come out from England very early, and he had come across from Tasmania and ended up with my great grandmother. So, yeah, just interesting bit of history for my family and for around. I always say, whatever the reason people have come to Australia is interesting. Some of them had free passes to come in those early days, so you had probably committed some terrible minor crime, and so they got the free passage out. Others wanted adventure, others wanted to just have a fresh start, perhaps. So interesting. But as I say, everyone who's come out and settled here has got an interesting story. I really love them all because they're all so varied. Anyway, that's turned out to be a long one, so I hope you put up with it. We're still listening.